Welcome to Coaching with Confidence and Care podcast, inspired by common topics that arise in coach training, mentoring, and supervision. My name is Lubadia Samidze. I'm the founder of Upthink Coaching, an active coach trainer, mentor, and supervisor. If you're listening, you're probably looking to deepen your skills as a coach. I hope this podcast will be a helpful resource for you and contributes to your journey. The topic I'm bringing today is inspired by a few of my recent mentoring sessions, where we have extensively discussed coaching the who. You know, coaching, just like any other industry, suffers from professional jargon, and I believe this phrase, coaching the who, is one of them. Now, what is this mysterious who level, and how is coaching the who different from coaching the what? Especially if you're a coach who's on the path to your PCC credential, then you might find this podcast episode helpful to differentiate between the what level and the who level in coaching and see if there's anything that gets in your way to coach at the who level. In short, coach and the who comes from the ICF language of core coaching competencies and in particular the PCC markers. Some of the markers specifically mention that the coach addresses the what of the client and the who of the client. And throughout the session, the coach attends to both the what and the who. At PCC level, dealing with a topic exclusively is not enough. And a coach is expected to show some of the holistic work, treating the client as a person, not just a topic that they bring to a coaching conversation. That being said, your credential should not be the only reason to master this essential skill. Deep listening to the client's underlying system of values, needs, and beliefs, as well as demonstrating cultural, systemic, and contextual awareness will help you do a much better work overall. First thing off, in this episode, I'm going to explain what the who means, and then I'll touch upon some of the common challenges that coaches face when they start to learn how to coach the who. I will also share some general strategies and tips of how to get you started on this. And I'd be really happy to receive your feedback about any of that, or maybe your questions, so that I know what would be most helpful moving forward in case we decide to revisit this topic in one of the future episodes. Right, a common misconception is that the who level is only about something huge, like your client's life purpose or mission. And another misconception is that the who level only emerges when a client reflects on one of their roles or identity names, if I can say so. So in other words, when a client assigns a role to themselves and says something like, I'm a superhero in my company, or they say, I feel like a newbie in this situation, or they might say, I'm such a mess. Although these labels and self-concepts are indeed valuable parts of the who, it would be very limiting to see the who level as only identity, role, or mission. It is a lot wider. So let me tell you this. Everything that is about the client or the thinker, if you prefer this term, or about your thinker's inner story could be part of the who. And when we get to coach at a more advanced level, such as PCC and above, we pay attention to the inner story as a resource to start resolving the outer story. And when we ask questions about the who, that means that we are turning our attention from the story, from the situation, to the whole person, your client's lived experience, cognitions, thoughts, beliefs, values, sense of identity, deeper meaning, authentic self. Let me give you a simple example. A client comes to the session and says, I have a project to complete and I'm procrastinating on that. I really need to do something to get this going. So this project, this situation is the what level. And a more linear action-focused coaching would help the client to brainstorm ways to resolve this challenge. For example, a coach would ask the client, what could you try? What are some actions that you can take that could lower the resistance? Maybe a coach could even use a model such as Becker's change equation to deal with the resistance piece, that is the procrastination that your client is experiencing. In contrast, when we take the who route, the basic assumption is that if your client finds themselves in an unproductive place, it's not just about the behaviors that led them to that place. Essentially, it is about some unproductive thoughts, beliefs, or perceptions, maybe lack of clarity, misalignment, resistance, inner challenges, fears, etc. It's the client's inner story that was unproductive in the first place. And this unproductive inner story prompted some unproductive behaviors as a result. A coach working at the who level works with the client's inner story. They can together find productive aspects of the story, reframe it, and see it in a new light. A client could see themselves as more capable, more aligned with their inner values. They may overcome deeper reasons for their procrastination or resistance. Once the inner story is reframed, the outer story gets reframed as well, just because it calls for new behaviors. It's like going to a doctor with a bad cold. They can either treat the symptoms or diagnose a deeper root cause. Perhaps your immune system needs strengthening. By boosting your immune system's health, you could achieve overall stronger health, rather than just repeatedly treating the colds that result from its weakness. Now, why is that important to work at the who level? Why do we aim to get coaches there as they go through their coaching development and maturity journey? A simple explanation could be that a lot of issues may not be even resolved at a surface level or at a situation level. Action-centered coaching may serve as a quick fix, addressing solutions that are on the surface. Only when we tap into solutions below the surface, into some core obstacles or hidden barriers, this is when true insights may emerge. And those ideas may not be accessible to our clients immediately. So the value of having a coach is in accessing those insights. And as you might already know, I am a big fan of coaching research. So I'm going to share some research-based perspectives which explain why there's value for a client to work at the who level. When we talk about working at the who level in coaching, we are really focusing on identity in the broad meaning of this word, how clients understand themselves and their place in the world. Research in psychology shows that identity isn't just a vague idea, it is central to how people find meaning and navigate challenges. It's closely linked to things like self-esteem, self-efficacy, our emotional resilience. At its core, identity is about that inner question, who am I? And also, who am I in relation to others? We all carry multiple identities, which are shaped by our roles, relationships, and the stories we tell ourselves. And the interesting thing is that these identities aren't set in stone. They shift and evolve as we move through life. That's where the idea of identity work comes in. Identity work is the ongoing process of making sense of who we are, especially during times of transition or challenge. It is both reflective and active. We think about who we are, but we also experiment with how we show up, how we speak, how we experience ourselves, and make choices based on that. And when a transition or change or a crisis happens, this may disrupt our sense of self. It may be a new role, a personal life shift, or something positive like a promotion, or something serious like redundancy. So all the shifts may trigger a need to renegotiate the identity that we had. And sometimes we feel a gap between how we see ourselves and how we want to see ourselves and how we are seen by others. And sometimes it's a deeper discomfort, a sense that we are out of sync with who we want to be. These are moments when identity work becomes important. Coaching offers a reflective space for our clients to engage in this identity work, not just to talk about what's happening, but to explore what it means, what the situation or the shift means for who they are. It's about helping people navigate that space between the current self and the emerging self. So when we coach at the who level, we're not just helping clients perform better or make better decisions. We are helping them anchor into a more coherent, integrated sense of self, one that can support sustainable action and authentic way of being in this world. And just because it's deeper work, some coaches are a bit hesitant when it comes to coaching the who. And as I promised in this episode, I'd love to cover some of these common challenges that I observe as a mentor coach, the challenges that are related to coaching the who. I believe if we address the challenges, it can help normalize them, because it doesn't mean that you're a bad coach if you're not doing that yet. A lot of coaches are experiencing this. And for a lot of coaches, who work is a new type of work. So it's okay to be new to this. And once we talk through the challenges, you may find some inspiration to move through them and engage more in the who work with your clients. So my intention behind this podcast episode and uncovering the challenges is purely developmental and supportive. Well, one of the challenges could be not fully understanding the difference between the what and the who. In simple words, the what is a situation, and how the client is in that situation, what their inner narrative is about that situation, it's the who. Typically, when we ask our client or our thinker what they want to discuss in a session, they start with a situation. For example, they say, I want to lead a team, but I'm not being offered those roles. Maybe I'm not ready. Coaching the what would focus on finding opportunities to get interviews or taking steps to get ready. A coach who walks with a who might say something like, imagine that you already are the leader. Who are you being? What makes others see you that way? And if a client says something like, I'd be more assertive, more visible, and probably more confident in my ideas, coach could follow up by saying something like, how might you begin to embody those qualities now, even before the role is officially yours? So let me explain this example. Instead of focusing solely on the external opportunity that is getting promoted, we help the client explore the internal shift, how they show up. What is their leadership side or identity, if you wish? And what is the gap between how they show up now and how they want to show up, fully embodying this new desired career shift? By stepping into the mindset and behaviors of the leader, they start shifting towards becoming the person who is seen as a good fit for the role. Sometimes coaches assume that they should not deviate from the situation and shift the focus to the who, because the client didn't request to be coached around the who. The client requested to be coached around the situation. However, you are still staying on topic. These are not different things. These are just different layers of the same story, same situation. So some of the coaches I mentored were initially reluctant to go to the who level because they felt this is their agenda and they want to do this work, not the client. And when they bring this to the client, they feel a bit confused. They say, aren't we supposed to follow the client? If a client just talks about the topic, then if I bring up something else, will it mean that I'm pulling the client in my direction instead of following the client? To this, I always say that when your client comes to the session, they already bring their whole self to the session with you. It's not that they just bring their situation, say a job change. And it's not about you taking them somewhere they didn't step into themselves. It is about meeting them where they are, but not at a situation level only, at a person level. When they come to a session, they're not playing back a recording to you, right? They're not playing back a pre-recorded message or an AI-generated text-to-voice about their issue. They're sharing the situation with you. And while they're sharing, they communicate their message holistically through their intonation and body posture, through pace, emotion, word choice, sharing their perspective, beliefs, opinions, feelings about the situation. They're offering you not a factual, official report. They're sharing with you how they see the situation, their perception. And your ability to notice those micro moments and the offerings of the who that clients initiate can give you a good opportunity to deepen those with a client, since those signs already emerged in the space of your session and they are part of this session. If a client is facing a difficulty with a job change, the who level may touch upon your client's beliefs and maybe some of the limiting beliefs, like I'm too old or I don't have experience in this area. There could be some emotions, values or patterns that may be contributing to pessimism or resistance. Newer coaches often default to solving problems, the what, instead of being curious about the person experiencing them. And this is another challenge that I regularly observe, over-focusing on the situation and problem solving. And don't get me wrong here, coaching is definitely about taking action, making shifts, moving forward. That is the expectation, and we are definitely going to go there. So it's just about how the journey is designed, whether the journey is linear or whether the journey goes deeper before it emerges back to the surface and invites the client to create an action plan. If we look at the MCC level, most of the session could be at around the who level. When we look at PCC level coaching, a balance of who and what is expected. This means we are not giving up the what, and we definitely attend to the client's agenda. We are not ignoring or pushing aside the client's agenda or the topic in order to focus on deeper work. The way to look at it would be like we are inviting our thinker to take an alternative path towards their desired destination in the session. The path that could be more impactful because what they may find in that place may serve them in many different situations, not only the one that was brought up in the session. What you really need here is patience and curiosity as a coach, so that you pause to notice the client's inner world in real time, and you do not just rush towards finding the solution to the issue that they brought. Speaking of rushing, here's another challenge, and it's that newer coaches are often cautious about time management in their sessions, especially if a client starts to bring a lot of deeper content, strong emotions, especially negative ones, fears, or other inner obstacles that they're experiencing. The coach may feel pressure to help the client get somewhere quickly by guiding them towards solutions, and that may keep the conversation at the surface. It takes patience, as I already said, and it also takes a lot of trust. Trust in your client, in yourself, and in the process, so that you know when you are slowing down and exploring some underlying values or emotions, instead of jumping to action steps straight away. This is a strategic move that has an immense value for your client. And you are doing this to serve the client, to help them find, activate their hidden resources. So you're not serving yourself, you're not being selfish, you're not doing this just because you want to look smart or you have an interest in doing this deep work. It's for the client's benefit. Of course, it may take a bit more time before you put your solution-focused hat on, but during that time, you can help your thinker find the core inner barriers that they need to overcome. Creating space is essential when we coach at the who level. Very often this level goes beyond the cognitive level, and some truths need time to emerge, and other truths need to be felt, not necessarily logically comprehended. This may be tricky because silence may feel awkward or unproductive, and some coaches are not yet comfortable with silence and spaciousness in sessions, which I really encourage you to do, because this can allow you to create more thinking space for the client and help the client do the work, really. The next challenge could be in the fear of going deep or getting it wrong. Some coaches especially newer coaches, may hesitate to ask deeper or more personal questions because they are worried about being too intrusive, or they are afraid the client might get emotional and they won't know how to handle it. I agree that coaching the who can feel vulnerable, and it requires a deeper presence and courage from the coach. Although you may want to spend time in your comfort zone and you may be less comfortable working with the unknown, as you mature in your work, that will be a direction to take. I often notice that coaches who are comfortable with their own who level and those who have a healthy, solid, and comfortable connection with it, they can bring their whole selves into sessions with clients. When these coaches invite their clients to do the same, it tends to feel much more organic to both of them. So before you jump in there with your clients, it may be a great idea actually to do this yourself. As I always say, mentorings and supervisions are a wonderful way to explore your own who level and how you show up in sessions with your clients, and whether or not you are bringing your whole self to clients' conversations. If you allow yourself to have your fears and still do good coaching, if you allow yourself to feel the feelings that you're having and experience somatic responses that you're experiencing, keep a high level of relational presence while realizing all those processes. And if you stay kind and curious in service of your client, it'll be very natural to invite your clients to do the same. As you trust your inner wisdom, you'll show that your clients can trust their inner wisdom. And that's really what you want them to do. I think coaching the who is really one of those examples of coaching that allows you to demonstrate your holistic approach, how open and receptive you are, and how you honor your client as a person. No, you're not treating them transactionally. You're not identifying them with the issue, the situation that they're bringing. You see them beyond the situation that they're bringing to discuss with you. It is extremely refreshing and helpful. So let's take another example. A client says, I avoid speaking up in meetings. I want to be seen as someone with influence, but I get too nervous. Action-oriented coaching the what, would focus on brainstorming various ways, techniques to manage anxiety and speak with confidence. A coach using an awareness-oriented approach, coaching the who, may say something like, let's imagine that you're already that influential person. How does that feel? How do you see yourself? How do you show up? How do you think? How do you carry yourself? What is one way you could start showing up like that version of you, even in a small way, at your next meeting? This shift is about helping the client to access the version of themselves that already embodies influence. Instead of jumping into how to fix the nervousness or rehearse talking points, we turn inward. What mindset, energy, and presence would the confident speaker bring? When the client starts showing up as that person now, however imperfectly, they begin to align with the deeper transformation they are seeking. The outer result, their presence and influence, starts to follow the inner shift, the identity level. I'm going to start to wrap up here. I hope in this episode I was able to shed some light on what is broadly meant by the who level coaching, why it may lead to clients' breakthroughs, what challenges are common, and what you can focus on to start overcoming them. If you recognize any of the challenges I was talking about, I want to remind you that they're all perfectly normal and common. I hope the podcast started to invite more curiosity in you to experiment with addressing your client's way of being, not just their way of doing. Thanks so much for tuning in. If this episode struck a chord and you think other coaches might appreciate it too, feel free to share it on your socials. If you're looking to grow as a coach, whether you're just starting out or you are already deep in the work, head over to the Upthink Coaching website. We've got programs for every stage of the journey, plus mentoring and supervision support that you can use as ongoing professional development. You can find it all at www.upthinkcoaching.com. I'm really glad you joined me today. In the next episode, I'll explore how to introduce your coaching services as a new coach or a less experienced coach or a coach in training without misrepresenting yourself. It's a common concern for those who are just starting out. How can I find coaching clients if I'm not a certified coach yet, if I'm still in the progress, or if I'm a newly certified coach and I don't have a lot of successful client cases? How can I invite people to start coaching with me without misrepresenting myself and with really honoring the stage that I'm currently at in my professional journey? So join me next time and we'll unpack it together. Hope to see you there.